Hi, welcome to Jade Kind Gaming. My name is Adam. Today, I am here for another of the Actually Building a World videos. I started, came by and just sort of went over my ideas in a document, and then I invited my friends in, and I got all of their ideas. Now, you see, the thing about my friends' ideas is a lot of them are stupid. I love my friends, but a lot of those they're stupid. Now, some of them were great, but then that's why I went for them. And I did my best to just sort of let the creative energy flow, because even some of the ones that are this is stupid, it's really only stupid for what I'm building now. Still great ideas, and still feel free to steal any of my friends' ideas. But today, I now have typed up all of their ideas so I can go make some notes on them to help me prepare to throw them into when I need to start organizing my notes and things. So I'm gonna pull up the document here with all my friends' ideas and just kind of start going through them. I'm kind of organized them here. So we started with, what sorts of games do they want to be able to play in the world? Important. High-level political campaigns. We've gotten so powerful now to build a kingdom around how awesome you are. Kind of a really weird way to put it, but the idea of a high-level campaign where you're building out your own kingdom, I'm like, perfect. That is... Island 2. Continent 2, but essentially the idea being, in my world, I have 3 main continents. 1 is the one with the whole World War aspect going on. 2 is the one that is being colonized, a la, American colonization, exploration kind of thing. 3 is like, the, unexplored continent with all the mysteries and stuff. The second continent is the perfect one for that kind of thing because they're actively working on colonizing it. So there's still great spots to carve out land, but enough, interaction with the first continent for modern conveniences and stuff. I think Island 2 would be a great spot to leave an area or two for players to make their own, kingdom. Like if had distinct kingdoms with distinctly different laws, governments to work with and around. Yeah. Good. What do I do for good? Good. Yes, I agree. That's kind of already something I'm planning. Big battle type campaigns go into other country and infiltrate or steal campaigns. Perfect. Great for war. The idea is to have a war, be able to be part of a battle or soldiers. Wonderful. Be fun to do almost a privateer campaign, either as pirates or as thieves guild that actually works with the government. Good thieves. Let's see here. Yeah, privateer on the sea is simple, but yeah, again, also war, able to jump borders and smuggle stuff between. Again, war. Yeah, that's all great stuff. I'm planning to have an active war going on in the campaign based on I've been watching the World War II in real time YouTube channel and kind of get an inspiration from that. And yeah, the idea of being able to have all that kind of stuff, I want to try and carve out spaces for that within that conflict. Have in-game thing for adventurers and why they would exist as murder hobos, mercenaries that they are, such as being cheaper to hire 4 adventurers to take out a goblin base than a whole platoon. First off, I hate when they use the word murder hobo. Most of the time, they use the word murder hobo to describe themselves when they're not behaving like murder hobos. When they're, being all, character-driven. And, just because you're killing goblins doesn't make you a murder hobo. Assuming that it's in a world where goblins are monsters and not goblins are people. but I can take, so have Adventures Guild. Maybe Island 2. So Island 2 again is that sort of spot. There's less organization. Yeah, so Adventurers Guild, and also try to have some governments that hire adventurers. I'm typing as I go. I don't spell well. You'll see that as we go through this, but it gets the point across. Hire out for monster problems. Use army for fighting other armies. Most soldiers are conscripts. No standing armies. Fought with a lot of mercenaries. Essentially, the thing I'm pulling out of here is hire out for monster problems. So hire because army busy in war. So and they're literally picking at individual situations where they've been in games, and they're all like, hey, can we, like, go to, like, the government and they'll pay us to do this thing? And I'm like, no, they have people to do that thing that work for them. You can work for them. Specifically, they're talking about the game where I had this whole organization structure with all these different factions, and they were supposed to choose a faction and become part of it, and they didn't want to. They're like, hey, Adam, let's play the faction game and say no to every single faction. So, yeah, the factions worked within the faction, and they kind of had to be part of the faction to get paid by that faction, and they were all whiny about it, and they still are, years later. I love my friends. Don't have the city/guard, the city guard/country's military take care of monster problems. Should be cheaper to hire a small group of higher level people. No. Not with what adventurers charge. If you look at what the normal person gets paid, when you try and pay my players what they would get paid for it to be cheaper to hire an adventurer, group of adventurers, they're going to be like, haha, why would I do that for 15 gold? I'm like, because we could hire, like, 30 people. They'll go take care of it. Start up a city/build a city style game on the Untamed continent. Island 2 or 3? Could be either. Yeah, I say Untamed continent. Sounds like the third one, but I could also see that being on the second one, where parts of it are not yet explored or reached. High espionage game. Play characters really good at escaping, avoiding capture, and NPCs trying to do so. War setting? Espionage within war, yeah. Leave freedom in political espionage games to play bruiser, enforcer type character. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to stop them. High fantasy intergalactic space campaign. Not this game. No, it's not what this is. Not intergalactic. I was like, I'm building a world, and he's like, here, build an entire galaxy, and I'm like, no. So we'll have a few of those. Dungeon delving. Really good dungeons are good. I have goals for trying to have some cool dungeons. They're work, but they're fun. If managed to get through dungeon and to final room, get collectible for town building or permanent bonus. I'm not deleting this one, but I'm putting no. That is to gaming. That is gamification. That is be like, you have to reach the final room of this dungeon and you get this item that helps with... It's It's not real. That's a game. You're playing a video game. It's not a video game. If you want a video game, go play video games. And my friends play a lot of video games, admittedly. Max damage brand items. Concept of someone out there making magic items. Someone out there making bad magic items. And probably on purpose. No, but concept. Okay. Max damage is Austin's bad item brand that he has had in his campaigns. I'm not going to use his brand, but I can see the idea of cheap knockoff magic items. Failed magic items being sold. Let's actually add this. Or failed magic items sold as is. So, minor cursed. So more cursed items that are minor curses where it may still be worth using them. Exactly. Perhaps easier to enchant something more powerful if it draws the power from the person wielding it, or cut safety corners. Maybe related to batteries. I don't know if I've explained it, but I think it was in the first one I talked about the idea of being able to have this power source that you can draw from. And so something like that, where maybe you can use the person as a battery. Want better loot chests, not just money, but chests filled with loot. I'll try. Alright, and then what flavors of setting did they want to find in the world? Inspired from the 3.5 Oriental Adventures book, corruption in the world, an ecological disaster that has to be dealt with using, usually with rare materials. Perhaps on one of less explored continents. It's easier for me to spell island, okay? So I'm going to call them islands in this. Could answer reason of why there are adventurers out there to do this crazy, dangerous job for possible rewards. I mean, yeah. That's referencing the above. The little hyphen marks are like double hyphens that I have here are saying this is continuing from the above statement. Could be Druid Ranger campaign to fight the corruption, nature of land being corrupted, and party is fighting that. So, Island 3. Specifically, I'm thinking the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I might just put Druids completely onto the third continent. So that, like, that is, like, a new type of magic when discovered. So there'd be some, if someone on the main game wants to play a druid, there's definitely some background hoops to go through, but because that's not where they're from. But they could make it work. But I might lock it behind that island. World itself should be fundamentally dangerous in some places, more than just monsters and other people to fight. Yeah, I agree. Yes. Thumbs up. Example, non-stop hurricane of doom in area where wizards fought long ago. Meh. I don't like that. I don't like that idea of this is just magic that's still going on here. I mean, meh. Because there's magic still. Let's go disenchant that thing. That's dangerous. But in the darker, more wild areas of the world, where it's more secluded, I can definitely see that danger being out there. More history to the world than war here and war there. Where are the craters from huge reality warping spells, remnants of trenches? Yeah, that's a good idea. I should try and pay attention to the fact that this is, this may not be the first war, So what are some of the previous areas Yeah. Continuous history from one campaign to the next, allowing prior campaign interactions to be set and observed in future games that take place further in the future. Sometimes. Yeah. As I've begun thinking about where I might focus for the first game to be, and I'm starting to think, as much as I'm like, this game is set in a time of war, I'm like, I might set the first time that we go there like 100 or 1,000 or whatever, like long beforehand, so that they can also be involved in some of like the things way back. It will mean I don't have to focus on the war aspect of the setting. First time around, I can focus on things that are just, no matter what time it is in history, it's always going to be the same. So I was like, yeah, no. And at very least, that would be something where I could draw some continuous history ideas from, so that'd be good. Could go for some steampunk. Don't mean brass hats, gears, but would like airships and mechs. Well, that's not steampunk. But I too want airships. Maybe a mech. I mean, yeah, Nick really likes Iron Kingdoms. It's alright. But, I mean, I'm not, I definitely, like, I want airships, and, like, I'm sure, I feel like, I don't remember who said what, like, something such as the apparatus of Qualish as a basic idea. Not that awkward. Now, apparatus Qualish with these weird, it is the most awkward thing to read through how it works. I'm like, no, if it works, it should really just work. Mechs vs. Giants Monsters, no. I don't like, they're all like, we like kaiju or whatever Godzilla thing I'm like, not me. Not what I grew up on. I don't know that. I don't understand that. And mechs aren't that big in this set. It's like, that is comical. That is your intergalactic game. That is your, yeah. But it's like, that just doesn't fit once the mech is that giant. I need some reality ground. Western? Yeah, definitely want an area inspired by Western. That's great. Thinking through Egyptian, Roman, any of those we want. So they didn't seem sure, but they brought it up. So, yeah, no, I'll try and pull some things from some of those, obviously. Would like a Viking campaign where our Viking raiders. So I guess that means Viking-inspired setting, which I don't know if that means like real Vikings or like, like the idea of Vikings with like the horned helmets and whatnot. Either way, yeah, no, that'd be cool. Probably maybe called it a continent. Island 1 or 2. So thinking Island 1, they could be just one of the outer nations that gets involved in this. It's maybe trying to stay out of the war, but have their own wars kind of thing, to help. Actually, yeah. Having their own wars to help it feel like world. Because that's one of the things. It's like just the idea of wanting to involve more other factions. Because as I picture this, I am very much like the war is one faction versus another. But I want it to be a little more world war. And so like a Viking group, Viking raiders that has their own smaller wars and reasons for that, that could be a great feel for it. Ship elements with siege dungeoneering, sea travel, then murder a bunch of peasants and steal their stuff. I'm not gonna stop you. And clearly, if you watched any of my campaigns, my players sometimes just go do stuff, and I'm like, okay, I guess that's what they're doing now. Yikes. Psychoreactive biome where things are thought morphic. Outer plane? Not on the material plane, no. High European or Gothic wizard stuff. Awesome. Yeah, good with that. Gothic, Mageocracy. Mageocracy. I don't know. Spell correction did something like that. Gothic, like architecture and visual. And then where shove all the vampires and Victorian things. Maybe vampires go elsewhere. But yeah, to the feel. Because it is so cliche that, you know, in your Gothic Victorian kind of setting, that's where you get your vampires and your werewolves. I mean, like, let's throw those in maybe, like, the Western or something. And it's like... Yeah, it's like... Where's in... Where? Not... It's like, I'm not... Yeah, I'm like, let's mix up some things here. Gnome area, super extreme metal guys. I don't know metal. My players, and by my players I mostly mean Ryan, but all of the rest of them jump on as like, yeah, do that. But my players are always like, we need to do like a metal game, yeah. And I'm like, I don't know metal. I don't. It's not me. That's not who I am. Of all of the type of music, I have an extremely eclectic musical interests, but there is almost no metal that I like. I don't know it. There's some stuff that they'll say, though, that's kind of metal, and I'm like, no, that's rock. And I like rock. But at the point where it's metal and it's like screaming and it's bad. If I can't sing along with it, what's the point? It's like, it's angry, and it's unable to be sung to, and it's like, at a certain point, I'm like, why? I don't know. But they're always like, we want metal, and I'm like, get it from someone else. Have mage guilds all over the place, but have them be heavily competitive against each other. Competition based on rare material components. Not quite. But we've got something going there for mage culture. So yeah, I'm like, nah, not really. Not exactly the way we want to do it. But that's a fair start. I'm like, maybe it's just different groups within the same guild are still competing over resources. And they're definitely not all over the place, because, you know, in the war spectrum, one side of it is all no magic. So they're not going to be all over the place, but definitely on the pro magic side, there should be several locations for the guild, and maybe 2 guilds, but not a whole bunch of different guilds, and maybe some competition within a guild, but not like heavily, you know, at the expense of, you know, we're all divination. Conjuration should fail. No one should learn conjuration. Nah, it's just us above you, but you're useful too, kind of, you know, that kind of. Guilds specialized, such as all divination sub-school wizards having alliance with conjurers to share spells, but not the best stuff, and against, say, the necromancers and transmuters, competing with them to hoard resources for ourselves. Probably not. Probably not. Perhaps single school, but heads of each department trying to further their own goals, which sign up for, or who accepted to, or one society functions this way, not at all. This is good. Yeah, that's, I think, the way I was going. Wizards Olympics, and then under that, Magnificent Mansion Contest. Come up with the best mansion you can. Maybe? I mean, maybe? That feels like the kind of thing that, I mean, that could be incredibly flavorful. But it's not the kind of thing I need to necessarily hinge anything on. It's weird. Alright, now, geographic features important to have. Want kingdoms in extreme places. Goliath societies up in the mountains where it's hard to get to, or evergreen swamps with Cajun swamp people elves. Cajun swamp people elves sounds like they'd be playing banjos and I think the banjo is an interesting instrument, both in general and particularly in fantasy, as it is such a Frankenstein's monster of instrument. Like, it's just all pieced together. You know, a lot of instruments, you know, you craft this together to this piece, and once it is whole, if you take it apart, you've destroyed it. Banjo has, like, screws and bolts, and it just kind of goes together, and you can take it apart and put it back together and change bits. I don't know. They look weird. And I like music with them. Kingdom that can raise and lower the mountains and crush people with cave mouths, like eating them? Maybe on outer plane. Not in the material plane. Mountain pillars. Oh, okay. And he gave me that reference with bridges and stuff between them. That's a decent idea. Super. Oh, this one. Super volcanic moon that people are fighting over to turn it into an orbital weapon. This is not the intergalactic game. Delete. Throw in a Grand Canyon someplace. Yeah, okay, I can do that. Space ocean. Water out in space you can swim in like a plane of water. This is not intergalactic. Gas giant, but liquid. Maybe there's one out there, but I don't need to... Okay. There's an interesting reason why I decided to type that note. Because I have, at least in part of the idea of coming up with this campaign, considered I might go into details about the specifics of what other planets are in the solar system, like just to flesh things out in that kind of detail. So I put that note instead of deleting it, because that one could be one of the other planets in the solar system. It has zero relevance to the actual setting, but it could be there. And because they recommended it, because they requested it, I feel like I should put that note, because it doesn't hurt anything to make it there. So, maybe. Are we married to the single planet, single material plane idea? Yes. Or could we have high-powered world that uses lesser worlds as a testing ground, and then they don't know what's going on? No, we can't. No, we're married to this is one world. That's what I'm building. I'd love to play a cool spacefaring game. Maybe Starfinder, or, I'm sure very soon Wizards is going to be bringing back Spelljammer, and I would love to run a game like that. But that's not this setting. So, yeah. I got their input on deity pantheon. Want crafting to either be all its own thing or have one god who is notoriously ADD with crafting. Yeah, just make it its own thing. Also a god of fellowship, camaraderie, who has an animal companion. I think that is technically the concept for whoever recommended its character in a previous game. Like, that became a god by the end of the game. Like, in some game, like, years back. But sure, I mean, just as a broad concept, yeah, that's fine. That's cool. Involve animals. I like that. Idea for kind of pantheon is different religions having more or less a single ideal. The less that they think the world could be in their mind, and they are trying to gather the faith of as many people as they can in order to do what is needed, rituals to bring about, to bring parts of the god in the form of avatars down into the world to help fulfill that ideal. Religions battling it out, either trying to persuasively or forcibly convert people, wiping them out, and just killing opposing people who are stealing faith away from an opposing idea, or creating a fusion where two religions decide they have a compatible vision on how they want to make the world and decide to mix ideas into a single idea. No. Now, I am actually currently in the process of coming up with maybe like a game where the players are the deities, and that's completely not related to this setting or anything else. It's just, I get bored, I come up with ideas, and that might be a great concept for that game, because it's still a good idea, but that is, this world, I definitely want to have that sort of, Greek pantheon, Roman pantheon, that kind of idea of the way that the gods function. So, to that idea, no. Counterpoint, dislike all of that, want religions to be distinct and different and not necessarily in conflict with everything else to try to steal power from them. Oh, good. Me too. Could be an evil deity acting like that, lawful evil, iron fist into a totalitarian government. We treat our people right and hate everyone else, and we'll treat our people right at the expense of everyone else. This deity wants above idea to be the world. Meh. Maybe. That seems more government than deity. Need to try and avoid using these little hyphens, because that's what my reference when I come back to that have switched from my notes to the to the original notes. Highest virtues for those righteous groups: purity, beauty, harmony, freedom, understanding, virtue, and efficiency can be taken either way and have evil versions of the same concept. Oh? I didn't get it. But maybe these. Are these? I'm not really sure what he's asking for there. I think going back to his original, like, we're trying to work against each other thing idea, like he's still pushing that, but want to know how strong are the gods actually, if they exist, and how much power can they use on the material plane, and why aren't they using more? Often glossed over, if a deity could wave its hand and destroy a city, why doesn't it? The mad agreement between all the gods that won't wipe out all one god's followers if they agree likewise is standard rules deities agree upon as example. So, come up with my own take on the divine gate. I'm familiar from Critical Role, and yeah, I was like, okay, come up with my idea of what prevents the deities from just woo. And I know at this point, because I have my deities in like power, like different tiers, and like the lowest tiers are, I mean, the lowest tier is player character. So, but yeah, definitely for those with more power, wanting them not to, Trickster deity, who is not evil. He just likes to play pranks, is playful. Okay. All about the fun of the trick. Inspiration, the spider and coyote of Native American folklore, where aren't evil but want to play a game with you, and if you play the game, you'll be okay, but will regret it if you don't. That sounds a little evil. If play along and let them have their laugh, you survive. Yeah, definitely evil, but I get what he's trying to say. Perhaps even bless and reward those who go along with the game, supporting the playful spirit. Sure. I mean, someone does. I definitely want to have orphanages in the world. But I'm not sure it's going to be the trickster deity that has orphanages, even if they're playful. The idea of it being a trick just seems mean to orphans. Input on the outer planes. Should be a Valhalla. Let's all go. I'll go party and murder each other for eternity and drink beer. Fight all day and drink wench all night. Something like this. Yeah, sure. Instead of having planes tied to things that exist, each god just has their own. So if end up on other plane, know it in some god's realm. Maybe. Probably many are contested. I mean, I have my like elemental planes and my that, but for the heavens and hells, maybe they're all there. But I mean, I don't know. I'll have to think about it. That'll be basically as the deities are being made, whether or not I can decide that. I can't really decide that until that point. Liked alternate movement in astral plane. Alternate movements in some areas, yeah. Like the idea of different gravities and different forms of movement. Time shenanigans. Help crafter have time to craft. Alter flow of time against going backwards against the own timeline. All of that I'm cool with. I like the idea of planes having different time scales and gravities and transportation and all that kind of, it helps them feel weird. It works. If from material plane and go to an outer plane and spend too much time there, could be affected with planar corruption, and character may change in some way and might be vulnerable to being banished back to that plane if you have become attuned to it. Maybe. Not a terrible idea. I'll probably look into the ramifications of that, but that's definitely something to consider. Far planes, far realm from beyond the outer planes, an excuse to where Cthulhu, tentacle, weird stuff is. Nope. This stuff is from one of the outer, one of the hells. Probably where there is weeping and gnashing of teeth. The outer darkness, something like that. But also an outer threat to the universe. No. Planar cops going around fixing in-between problems. No. Well. Not in between problems. But maybe some planar cop possible. So I can try and take part of that idea, if not all of it. What races are important to be in play and why? Dwarves. They're important to me too. They're one of the ones I have the most developed for. All for variety. Okay. Yes. Fine. That doesn't answer. So that is assuming all core. That was the most infuriating answer that I could have gotten. I rarely publish the stuff I make, but occasionally I do, and I almost always design things with that concept in mind. That being said, I have access to all the races in the system reference document, but that means that things that have come out after the player's handbook, I don't have access to. So if I make furbolgs a key part of the world and don't have access to furbolgs, I can't talk about them if I publish. Which I know is silly, but for me that just means, so it would be more important to figure out what do you like about furbolgs, and let's build a race that incorporates that, but is different. Easy, fun, something for me to build, and that's fun. But he's just like, just put them all in, Fred. I'm like, Barney, come on, man. I asked a question. Want more options? This didn't accomplish that. So yeah, I was upset by that answer. And I was like, but what do you mean? It's like, I just want all the options. It's like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah. And he just repeated it. It's, whatever. People with things, whether flyable or not. Yeah, definitely do that. Genasi equivalent for planes tied to outer realm. You can do that. Highly intelligent octomorphs. No. It's like, no. If you want that, you can play that intergalactic game. Ooze people. I don't remember if it was an ooze race or an ooze class or what, but I was building something that was very ooze related at some point that I could just pull into this setting. So yeah, I mean, I'd do that. Natural shapeshifters with a single animal form. Nomadic peoples by nature, either tribal or random. One race, but different members can shift into different animals. Prefer full shift, perhaps hybrid at higher levels. Not hybrid. Yeah, because we don't want the race to have that at higher level. You get this overly complex thing, but the idea of a race that can basically is given an animal stat block that it can change into. Yeah, that is awesome. That is fun. I like animals, especially in concept. Highly intelligent pets, non-anthropomorphic animals, dog, wizard, cat, rogue. No. There's actually even Steamforged Games came out with some minis and rules for that, and I sent them over to Ryan a little bit back. And I might run that game, but that is not this game. Mimics with class levels, created by class levels, could eat magic items and then mimic their functions. Maybe a monster. Not a race. So maybe some advanced mimic, magic item mimic kind of thing, but probably not going to be a player race. Play ghosts who can only interact with the world through possession. that could be either a campaign archetype. So, yeah, it could be a campaign idea or an idea for a heroic catalyst. Which, from my original idea, is that, here's what makes you a hero. I don't know. That could be complex. That could be messy. But maybe. Based on Devil's Hierarchy, start by playing a Blub Lemur and shift to Bearded Devil, Pit Fiend, and eventually Unique. Devil. No. That is not this game. That's a campaign idea, and not a terrible one, but that's not what this setting is. Perhaps a race that has a lot of power on the back end, gaining benefits as level up. That's what they're saying about that devil one. No. That is too messy. That is not 5th edition. That is not how that works. Prolific dragons. There are dragons. There are lots. Perhaps a nation. They interact with humans. No. No, I really dislike that. But I thought it was interesting that he asked for it. Because I don't like that. I've thought about it. And that's one of the things I'm like, I might do a campaign that has quite a few dragons. Something like that. I'm thinking about that. But I don't want it to be a part of, like, the setting in general. Because I don't like the idea of a nation of dragons having settled. I'm like, I don't want that. I mostly don't want that because I don't like dragons are monsters. I'm not a huge fan of D&D's dragons overall. It's like they're interesting. Shush. They're interesting as far as, your smog. But once you get a whole bunch of them like that, it's like, come on. Extra giant forms to the orc race as a type of giant. So, monster, not a race. So, that's a monster, not a race. But yeah, let's do giant orc as a monster, sure. Sentient land. Either the land itself is intelligent, or a forest that has a super stag, has control, so hazardous area because of magical concentration made. Maybe a badger to human, or of human or greater intelligence, and give it control over its area. Would have to negotiate to travel through. That is a direct reference to a game where they came across a badger that I'd given like an ion stone to increase its intelligence and a belt of dwarven kind to give it language, and I'd just done some things basically to, without awakening an animal, basically makeshift awakening an animal and giving it personality, but by taking the magic items from it, they basically turned it back into just an animal. And that is still, I mean, I liked when I came up with that character concept, and I didn't get to play the character for long, but I enjoy that they still make jokes about that ages later. Maybe Ellen 3. Where druids are. Sentient land is really weird, but maybe where there's druids. I can see that. Rideable giant flying mantis. Could jump hover mantis steeds? No. Well, maybe, but probably not. I don't think so. That's weird. Different steed choices. Yes, definitely. I like that. Giant mantis? Weird. Want stuff to do underwater. You do. Potential for terranauts. Fish people come onto land in special breathing gear to explore the land. Magic item to allow aquatic people to breathe air. Concept, odd, but item, good idea. When I think terranauts as like a concept, I think of like that's like a campaign which no, but I mean having a magic item that someone that's playing a mermaid can have this item, and that lets them basically play in a normal game. Awesome. So we should write that down. I want to use that symbol. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're making our way through this. It's like they said a lot. It was a long video then, and now it's me reading through all the actual stuff they said and going through my ideas on it, taking notes. After all this, I'm then going to have to go organize all these notes, but I'll do that on my own. Now I'm just adding my notes to it. What classes are in the world, and what role should they play? This one, very much like the race one, only I got better responses than just all of them. Revision on Monk to be less mystical or give fighters more martial arts options. Give. Man, I'm not a huge fan of the Monk. Just in theory. But some people like it, and I don't feel like I should say, no, you can't take it. And I think I've mostly built... I think it was for like a modern game, so it might have to change some, but I've built a version of Monk for Fighter. Fighting stance and subclass for more martial arts fighter. So monks are the tradition and spirit journey, and fighters just have such a fighting technique. Yeah. That way they have both for whoever wants to play what. Fighter gets martial arts subclass, then give monk subclass to be half divine caster. I like that. That's cool. Mystical materials beyond just mithril and adamantite. Yes, and expand the list by including those as not magic items. Because in 5th edition, as is, mithril and adamantite are magic items, not metals. Which means if they go into an anti-magic field, they lose their powers and their properties. And in a setting with a war that has people that are anti-magic, I feel like having various metals that have special properties but aren't magic would be useful. For them to have things, and then also so that there's not, so there's things that can have power that still is cool when in an area where magic's just been shut off. For scaling equipment, yeah, and that way we can have, better equipment scale. Not rare like magic. Rare. It should be a little bit rare. And I mean, we're going into a game where, the idea is, in the magic city, every common folk should have at least some cantrip level magic item piece of equipment, so magic isn't so excessively rare. Weaker magic is common. Something to fall into the masterwork slot. Return masterwork. In one of the prior games I'd brought up, and I'd done a trial run for some masterwork equipment. I think some thieves' tools, and then I let them do it to a weapon. But basically the idea of being able to have a number of advantage rolls. Each metal has a special property, such as light metal to make something finessable, or bones of a creature to make the item holy in nature. Sure. Unicorn horn spears. Sure, but that's mean. Idea for warlocks. Because given selves to Patron removes part of them from the world, so when someone meets a warlock, they forget that the warlock was even there after some time. Obfuscated individuals, because Patron removes traces of them from the world. I said invocation. People forget they met you, more subtle and gradual than memory erase. That's obviously not going to be something that's just all warlocks, but I can see, sure, if you want a version of warlock that can have that ability, why not? Makes me think of, normally I would just say no, years back, but now that I like Doctor Who, and it makes me think of The Silence. And I'm like, okay, we'll see what we can do there. Barbarians and paladins as entertainers, like gladiators, or presence on battlefield where people look at them, faces and heels from wrestling. Maybe. I'm not sure what that actually looks like, but I mean, I don't like it. I don't dislike it conceptually. It's fine as a concept. I just don't know how to make that a thing other than the way they play the character. Bard variant, that is purely performance inspiration based, no magic. Take that power and put it into inspiration buffing. No. Magic is core to Bard. Non-magical support roll buff. Okay, idea. Perhaps charisma fighter variant that is leader and gives buff warlord. Yeah. That works better. Focus on entertainment for buffs, storyteller, singer, and still have role and party without magic. That's fine with the fighter version. Or maybe replace magic with infinite use invocations instead of spell slots. Could even be a bard warlock with a different spell list that is limited and give extra invocations, powers, and inspiration. So, warlock. Bard. So we want to have a fighter bard and a warlock bard. Got it. Actually, where? Fighter bard, warlock bard. Bring in minions casters with low damage, area of effects, and controllers. Okay, so those are basically the ideas of having 1 HP minions so that an AoE can seem really powerful, because everyone it hits just dies. And basically I just come up with an optional rule and put some things like that in. And I mean, not a bad idea, but yeah. Something to give weaker races like goblins, kobolds, combo attacks, pack tactics. I think it might have pack tactics, but maybe some special flashy rules for larger groups to quickly do one attack from multiple monsters. Okay, so I'm pretty sure they already have pack tactics, but that's still each one of them just getting benefits from being around others. But the idea of maybe, you have 4 goblins next to you on, from the top of the initiative. If none of the 4 of them have gone, or maybe whatever, or maybe 3 of them use a reaction to prepare for something, and then the 4th one can initiate it, and all 4 of them jump on and do this combo attack that happens all at once. Which works really well with the way I run a game, because generally one type of monster is going to all be on the same initiative count. So they just all have to kind of move into place, and then 4 of them counts as 4 of their attacks, but all happens at once, kind of thing. What sorts of technologies are common or rare? Yeah, like what technology exists in the world? High level of variance and technology level. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like the unexplored continent versus the high magic of the magic side of the war versus the high technology of the anti-magic side. Yeah, there's going to be all sorts of variance. Yes, so yes, variety of technology is assumed, but yeah. From Stone Age to laser weapons. Laser weapons. But magic. Weapons. Non-magic people have access to trains, since magic people have lightning lines. It's probably Nick that said that, since he knows the setting. But yeah, trains are cool. Steam power in non-magic area. Yeah. Cannons, artillery, black powder available for siege engines, but not everyday life. Pistols, rifles exist, but are very rare and new. Black powder has great uses beyond just killing people. Look up those. So yeah, let's give the non-magic people black powder and come up with things for that. That's perfect. Wonderful. Planar technology. Pinhole gates to other planes, such as powering a forge from the plane of fire. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely done that in games, so that's fun. Especially in the magic place, yeah. Certain things have magical components that can run technology. Certain creatures. Some. Harvesting crystals parts from some monsters that are needed to run some magic tech. Crystals? I mean, probably not crystals. Unless it's a crystal monster. I mean, that's the idea that they're like, well, in a video game, you kill the monster and you get it has this color crystal, and I need a bunch of this color crystal in order to do this. I mean, my friends literally read, like, I don't know if they're books, like novels or comics or manga or whatever, like, but they read stuff that is like, it's a story, but it has video game logic behind it. Like, they have an inventory, and it's like, I'm like, not for me. I'm glad you guys have fun. You go have fun. I want some sort of, basis for reality. Have a society of people who can craft flesh and bone and use bodies of themselves and animals. Ew. But maybe. On Island 3. Such as turn an elephant into a bus but is still alive. Mix of Flintstones necromancy. Ew. Pro-zombie society. Give up body when die to greater good as labor force. More variety of zombie skeletons. Like to be able to trade out a horde of undead for a single larger undead. Include this with other expansion of notes on spells. I want to have a lot of expansion of notes on spells, so that'd be a great one to include as parts of it. art community, since it's post-scarcity society that doesn't worry about labor force. I mean, I guess. Ew. Society, we're able to control things like ropers to do stuff, monster taming, society, circus. Not likely society, but maybe small group of trainers. National sport in civilized land, or Olympics between warring countries, perhaps just before the war. Meh. But think about sports. It's a fair note to think about sports because I by default don't. Deities require the Olympics and enforce it with violent precautions if held off for the war. Because a treaty between God of War and God of Games causes that. No. It ruins the overall setting flavor if the gods are getting involved and be like, you can't have your war, you have to play games. Quit being stupid. If they're in war, they're in war. Want to have airships? Me too. Yep. Perhaps as temples of God of travel and take you only somewhere new. No. Better version of permanent version or permanent version of Tensor's floating disk. Maybe alt spell. Wand gun rod or wand gun or rod of wands that you put a wand in and lets you better utilize a wand. Why not? Make druids the crazy doctors that just live out in nature. Yeah. Monsters, creatures included. Dragons, lots of them. Want the boring, chromatic, metallic D&D dragons. Maybe for a campaign. Not setting wine. Helpful fey creatures that finish your work for you overnight in exchange for sweets being left out. Not sure if want to make fey that nice. Perhaps is risk would draw wrong fey to your home. So I'm not saying completely throw it out, but something's got to be weird with it. Perhaps tied into the good trickster deity, what doing to you and what for you. Maybe. Type of fey that can't lie. Wilderness fey that is based on alignment. Good will help, neutral won't, but won't mislead. Evil will mislead. I don't want to tie that much to alignment. I'm thinking I might alter how alignment functions as is. Giant monsters, Kaijus. No. But sea monsters. So giant sea monsters are great. How you held up all that weight? Rainbow talking ravens, corvins. I suppose. I don't know what what relevance that really plays, but sure. Funny monsters. Earthbound-like humor. No. If you haven't played Earthbound, play Earthbound. It's great. It's fun. But it doesn't keep for this setting. Perhaps a plane of dreams? Not bad. Especially up with that thought of the thought morphic area. Plane of dreams could work for that. Monsters that inflict psychological or body horror. Someone else voted for no. Not much of that. Doll that has a needle that, if it sticks you, then you swap bodies and it runs off with your body and you are stuck in the doll. Seems like that could really mess a character up. And you fail to save. Now you are effectively dead. Or you can continue to play on as this CR, now that it no longer has the needle, CR0 doll. Quest to find... It's like the doll thing. It's like it can work for a campaign, but it's not a great thing to come up and do to one character, and now you're ruined. Make a new character. Quest to find why people are missing. And creature has way to hide what it is doing, and I have to pick apart psychological clues to find out. Seems like this stuff is campaign idea more than monster idea. Suspense-based monsters. Not enough suspense in D&D. I agree. But can't force that to players that don't want. Okay. Suspense is the kind of thing that everyone at the table has to be on board with. They have to say, yes, we're going to be serious. We're going to try and build that atmosphere. If anyone at the table is like, no, I'm going to tell jokes and break the tension and keep any suspense from building, then the suspense never builds. So if everyone at the table is not okay and not interested in playing that suspense type of game, you can't just make it happen. And clearly, I want to guess it was Ryan that was for that. And I'd find it interesting. I'd find it fun, particularly for a shorter campaign. But the rest of the table probably isn't going to play along. A non-magic place would be digging for coal or other gunpowder things, perhaps something akin to John Carpenter's The Thing came up. Perhaps. Some monsters, at least. They may control some as weapons. Because they're against magic, they're not against controlling other creatures. Monster that can kill someone and take their place without anyone knowing. Doppelgangers, multi-phase boss creatures. Oh, that's cool. Other thoughts or ideas? Like there to be burrow vehicles that could burrow through the earth to have underground campaign other than cavern style. Seems disruptive. Maybe something very slow, or could follow tamed purple worm. So, yeah, that's the list of all the ideas that my players had given me. And when I was thinking about it, both from when they did it and then when I typed it up, I thought a lot of no. And there was a fair bit of no. But there's a lot of good stuff that even if it's like, I can take part of that, there's quite a bit in there. So my next step is to take that and the original document from the first episode of this and try to come up with some sort of organizational structure. I have enough, in my mind, step one was to get feedback from friends. I ended up with my own notes first, so now I have those notes and these notes from my friends, and I need to figure out a way to organize them. And probably once I have that is when I'll be coming back and going over, I guess, what the next part of the process, what my next goal or idea will be. But yeah, so that's at least me talking about each of the ideas my players had. Moving forward, we'll get things organized. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff helps me out, helps YouTube recognize me. If you're interested in stealing any of my friends' ideas, particularly the ones that I was just like, no, that's stupid, and you're like, that looks like so much fun, let me know. And I'll pass it on to them. I'll let them know if some of their ideas are like inspiring other people. But yeah, thanks for joining me. Join us next time for more. Bye.